Welcome to Impolite MTG,
where we're going to talk about Magic the Gathering.
and we're not always going to be nice about it.
I'm Chris Fold, Baker's King.
Hey, I'm Dave, Guru of S'mores.
These were super topical. A couple months ago, Maro did his yearly State of Design article.
And we'd like to mine it for YouTube content like the hacks that we are.
What Dave actually means to say is that we want to comb it over and explore the article for stuff related to Commander.
Yeah, sure, that's totally what I meant. I don't think we're hacks at all.
I mean, we're totally hacks, but we should really focus on what Mark says here.
Yeah, and true to Maro form, he said a lot. So let's get into it. So, to start off, the State of Design article is pretty dense. We will be jumping over some aspects of it and discussing what we feel is most relevant to the Commander players.
There will be a link in the description to the article itself if you want to read it on your own. As for you, Dave, where did you want to start this conversation?
Set boosters!
God, I love these things. I don't tend to draft, so getting the 7 commons multiple row every time you open a booster pack is just really tedious if you're not drafting.
Oh, agreed. I hate commons. I just, after I get a certain amount, I sort them, and I keep 2 of each, plus any foils or, the showcase funky ones, and then everything else just goes in the trash, because even my LGSs are like, yeah, we don't want them either, dude.
I know we're kind of divided on whether it should be 15 cards per pack still or 12 cards per pack. Either way, I think they are a great inclusion, and it only took them 30 fucking years to figure it out.
Right?
I don't know why it took so long.
It only took Wizards 30 fucking years to figure out that we open booster packs and don't draft. You know, the thing I like about set boosters is I don't mind that I get less cards, because the cards I get less of are cards I was going to throw away anyways. So honestly, it means less paper waste in the garbage.
True.
You know, for all you tree-hugging hippie types, that's something to be proud of with WotC.
I think they could have utilized those 3 extra deck slots for other things. It could have been promos, it could have been other stuff, it could have been really cool things for just people buying set boosters. But yeah, I see where you're coming from there.
Definitely. Moving on.
So what's next? Do we want to talk about the overarching mechanic of this past standard environment?
Yeah, modal double face cards.
MDFCs for short.
Overall, I like the concept of MDFCs, because to me it didn't feel wholly different from the transform mechanic that we originally saw in Innistrad, and then they played around with that in Magic Origins with the flip walkers. So to me, MDFCs isn't anything new, it's just they finally gave it a name.
I think the other thing though is these are always available to you. You can play either side without having to meet a certain condition.
Yeah, I really like that.
Also, design space for Commander. These are really, really fucking good. So one thing I really like about these is if you need a land for your deck, it does that. However, if you need a second copy of Regrowth, Balaged Recovery is right there as an option.
Yeah, definitely. And for me personally, as I've introduced these things into my decks, I actually I'll put Balaged Recovery in my land slot. I don't count it as a spell, and then, it's an extra land if I need it, because I've been playing Magic long enough that, we didn't have spells that were also lands. We know how many lands to put into a deck to not get mana screwed. You want 35 to 38 lands in your Commander deck, and you pretty much won't get mana screwed unless you just get a bad draw. So for me, it's I don't need to go 38 lands plus Balaged Recovery. I literally just replace a land in my mana base with Balaged Recovery, and if it comes up, it's a land. To me, it's not Balaged Recovery with a land on the back side of it. It's a land with Balaged Recovery on the front side of it.
And the thing is, if you're running Harrow, if you're running Rolling Regrowth, you can sacrifice it, get it into the graveyard, and then find a way to get it back to hand and use it as the other half.
Yeah, there's definitely some fun recursion shenanigans you can do with all this stuff.
I mean, I think one of my biggest complaints, though, from specifically Zendikar Rising, the Bolt lands just kind of feel lackluster. 3 life is just too much for that effect to get a monocolored land untapped.
For sure. I really think they should have just come in untapped, like the modal double face lands, and it's okay, it's a big splashy spell on the front side, and where all the other lands in Zendikar Rising, they come in tapped, This one doesn't come in tap, so it comes down, you get it, and then it's a big splashy spell on the other side. The fact that you have to bolt yourself was kind of like, really? Why? For a mythic, it didn't feel very mythic-y.
Yeah, and it's funny because like the only cards that do come into play untapped for the MDFCs are the pathways.
Yeah.
We're kind of divided on this. I personally really like them, and Dave, not so much.
Yeah. I feel like they should have had the land types on them, like, Simic colored one should have been a forest on one side and a island on the other side, and you should have been able to go find both. Then that would have been so very close to an actual dual land. Super, super close, and I would have been like, oh, that's perfect. They're getting as close as they possibly can without going there. But then the downside of that is you have to make a choice of which color you put it down as, because once you put it down on the green side, you lose the blue side unless you do some shenanigans. But either way, you have to make a choice.
Yeah, I agree.
We've seen for many years that players like having choices to make. That's what makes the game the most fun. That's why Planeswalkers are so fun, because you have a choice between the uptick and the downtick immediately when you play them. So giving a player a choice on what their land taps for without any like super major drawbacks, the choice is the drawback.
The other thing to really look at here is like all of these give you choices. Looking at Kaldheim's, you have a choice of playing your god or playing the flip side, whatever it happens to be. I like the versatility. I like the fact it takes up 2 positions in my deck. It counts as a creature, and it also counts as, hey, a planeswalker if I need it, or a equipment for my equipment deck. Like, it's just really, really good versatility.
Then the other interesting thing it does is it sets this paradigm where if you really want to try and have both sides of that Halvar, God of Fury, if you really want both sides, you can do some weird like copying, blinky, I'm going to copy the creature side, bounce it back to your hand, and then play it as the other side, and you have both sides. And it can create a neat little deck building challenge for interesting hoops for players to jump through, and I like that as well.
Yeah, and then if you look at Strixhaven as far as what they introduced, so you have spells on the backside of cards, or you have the Dean cycle was kind of weak. I personally don't think it was a good inclusion, but
yeah, that was very much where the MDFCs kind of lost their luster for me, was Strixhaven and the Dean cycle, because the problem for me was the Dean cycle felt like just 2 legendaries stapled onto the same card.
The thing for me though is like they felt like you needed to play both halves for them to actually be good.
Yeah.
And that was just kind of not a good concept for commander play.
Yeah, like that gets back to the standard focused aspect of it, which they have to consider those things. A premier set, as they call it, isn't called a standard set anymore because they've acknowledged that these sets don't just filter into standard. They filter into modern. They filter into legacy. They filter into historic and pioneer, and they also filter into commander. They have to think on all these different axes. When the Dean cycle maybe just didn't work great for commander, maybe it works better in standard, but I haven't really seen them in standard to where I think it matters anyways. I think they were just lackluster overall.
However, I think there's one exception to this, and it's the 3-color one in the set, Extus Auric Overlord.
Yeah.
With the Awaken the Blood avatar as on the flip side.
Dude, I've seen some mean-looking Extus decks. There's a YouTube channel called MTG The Stack. It's where I've first seen it, and it does some nasty things.
Aristocrats in your command zone is just a really, really good option. Maro does Aristocrats really well to begin with, but having that option in the command zone just to like play this shit is really good.
Not to mention, I actually kind of like the idea of like having a sorcery in your command zone. Like, I'm going to cast a spell, but it's a creature on the front half, but I'm going to cast it at the back half, and it's a spell, and then I'll dump it into my graveyard, and then I'll do shenanigans there. It's just a really good design to, like, have black-colored legendaries be spells, or maybe even blue ones, too, because blue definitely plays with its spells. You cast the sorcery side, it goes into the yard, you recur it, you can do interesting shenanigans with the body because you played it out of the command zone as a spell and then put it into the graveyard as it resolved. So
the thing is, though, like, the other thing that makes it really, really strong is on the front side, it has a recursion effect if you need to. Yeah, it doesn't target your legendaries, but getting back your Blood Artist after it's blown up off the board is just a really useful trick.
Definitely. So did you have anything else you wanted to say about MDFCs, or does that about cover it?
No, I think that about covers it. I do think we should be moving on to our first standard legal set here, and let's head to Zendikar.
Zendikar Rising. Didn't get much of a rise out of me.
Yeah, a lot of lackluster mechanics, some disappointing returning mechanics. Yeah, not much to get excited about, really. Yeah, they could have brought back allies in there. Instead, we got this shitty thing, party. It was not good.
It's the kind of party that you show up to, you drink like 2 beers, and then like they start playing Smash Mouth, and you're just like, ah, I'm out.
Yeah, as much as I want to, jam out to Smash Mouth, I don't think it makes a good party environment. So what don't we like about party as a mechanic, since we're kind of making fun of it a little bit here?
Definitely. Well, so my main thing is, I think this is an example of right place, wrong time. The mechanic itself doesn't suck. It's just, it got put into the Zendikar set. It pushed out allies. We got this announcement that we're doing a D&D set, and then it made sense. Oh, okay, they're doing party in Zendikar to seed it into AFR.
They didn't.
And then AFR comes along, and they did nothing with party, so it was all rub and no ending.
The thing is, I don't like the classes they selected for it. The whole idea of a party in D&D was barbarian, so berserker and magic talk, druid, wizard, warlock. Like there's a lot of classes that can be put into a party, and this restricts you to 4 very specific ones: rogue, cleric, wizard, and warrior.
Yeah, but you could argue warrior is barbarian. The whole problem is he just sits very awkwardly with the D&D set that we got. I don't know if it's a matter of like they designed it in Zendikar and then AFR wasn't that far along in design, or however that works. It's just, if you're gonna do something like this, with eyes forward to something else, like make sure that the set that comes later on pays off, the seed that you planted, earlier.
Oh, I agree. And there were 2 really good mechanics introduced in this set. Landfall got brought back, but Snap-on equipment is super, super cool. That's a really cool mechanic that just kind of helps out aggro decks. It helps out so many equipment-based decks that it should have always been a thing.
I genuinely think like equipment used to be like, aha, look at your silly little Voltron deck. Snap-on equipment in Zendikar made equipment decks, like, I don't want to say tier 1 strategy in Commander, because Commander doesn't really do tiers, but it brought equipment up to a point where it is a viable deck that you could realistically play and win with in games of Commander now. And what I call this is, I call them scaling into Commander. They did that with White Weenies, with God Eternal Ketra. They did that with Mill, with Bruvak the Grandiloquent. They did that with Mono Red Burn, with Torbrand. Zendikar Rising and Akiri Fearless Voyager was the scaling into Commander.
I think we should address right now, though, like the very first one equipment of this type we saw is actually Embercleave from the very broken Thrones of Eldraine set.
Yes.
We had it previously before, but this one turned every single equipment we got in this set into the Snap-on.
And then we tend to see with Wizards design, they introduce a new idea, they push it too hard, and they go, oh, that broke things. And then they dial it back a little bit, and then they get it right. Well, here's where they got it right.
Without trying very hard at all.
Exactly.
We saw one previous attempt at it with Embercleave, and then they're like, yeah, we like that. Let's put that all into one set.
Really? I'm not a huge equipment player myself. Like, personally, I don't have an equipment deck. But, like, I could realistically see myself building one at this point because Snap-on equipment is a thing.
Let me also point out that, Landfall was brought back to the set. This is the other really good mechanic returning.
For sure. And Landfall is basically Magic Design on easy mode at this point. They've got it down to a science. There's really nothing else to say about it other than it's just fantastic.
I do have one complaint.
Oh, yeah?
Way too much. There are way too many good landfall effects in this set here.
That's probably true. Scoop Mob is definitely, like, it can really overtake a game. But I don't know if that's necessarily a problem with the set or just the fact that Landfall has so much support that anything that's remotely good is just automatically broken. It's sort of like, this card isn't the problem, Deadeye Navigator is the problem.
Yeah, it kind of feels like it's the opposite problem of Kicker. Like, Kicker always feels lackluster to me. It's a returning mechanic here as well in Zendikar Rising, and it just kind of does Kicker things. Like, it's a mana sink for a lands matter set, but they're not good cards typically. They're overcosted. Even multi-kicker from Rollwake was just like a really lackluster mechanic. It's a mana sink when you cast a spell, but it doesn't offer much. Most of the time, it was just +1/+1 counters with multi-kicker.
Yeah.
Here, you get a couple kicker payoffs, and that's it.
And then you get like that, like they even shoehorned in a kicker commander, the Simic one. And it's just like, you know what, guys? We don't need a commander for every freaking mechanic that you bring back to a set. Like, can we stop getting legendaries for every little pissant thing that you make? Oh yeah, in Zendikar Rising set, we gave kicker to blue and green. Gotta have the blue green. Like it didn't even feel like a proper like let's design a cool commander. It felt like a box that had to be checked off.
The stupid part about it is like the way it worked with the commander tax actually made it really, really strong. But there weren't enough really cool kicker effects in the set to make it worthwhile.
Yeah, it just doesn't pay off to where it's worth it.
I feel like this is an unpopular opinion we're sharing here. Like we don't.
Yeah, a lot of people like kicker, and I've never been into it. Gavin Verhey on his channel, Good Morning Magic, he did a video a while back. Where like, oh, there's this mechanic, but it's just kicker. There's that mechanic. Oh yeah, but it's just kicker. Well, so here's the thing. The reason why I like other mechanics that are basically just kicker, whereas I don't like kicker itself, is to me kicker has no strong flavor resonance. It's just like what is kicker? Is like exert. Exert is just like, okay, you tap the creature and it's exerting itself. You can't untap it. Put
extra effort into it. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, and so is that what kicker is? They're just putting a little extra effort into the casting their spells. There's just a little oomph behind one. They don't flavor it anyway. It's this weird holdover from like older Magic where the design aspects of Magic didn't have as much flavor resonance as we are used to getting today.
Yeah, I mean, it did get introduced in Invasion, which was a long time ago. It's just not interesting to me at all. I think we should probably planeswalk to Kaldheim now.
Going to Kaldheim.
That's right, Kaldheim. There's a lot of cool mechanics here that we should really talk about. I think there's a lot we should bring up in this conversation.
Foretell is the exact opposite of kicker. It is so flavorfully resonant. It works amazing. The art looked great. They put the little watermark on the cards for the Foretell cards. Oh my god, just chef's kiss.
Oh, 100%. It gives early game Dirtle something to do with great payoff later on. It's a mechanic that can return on multiple planes without really struggling to be explained on other planes, because prophecies aren't unique to Kaldheim. You could always predict the future other places.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
It has a multiple set sort of benefit to it. I mean, the biggest problem, though, is like we had Foretell, Boast, Tribal, and Changelings brought back, Saga, Snow, a bunch of one-off mechanics. Like, why did we need the whole factions thing in here as well?
Yeah, we really didn't. We didn't need like Starnheim and then that place. It's like you could have made these all like different villages within Kaldheim, and it's like, oh, if you go over there, that's where all the Rakdos people live, and but the other problem there is that's also Ravnica.
Yeah, I know what they're going for thematically, like as far as inspiration wise, it kind of played up the 10 realms, popular Norse mythology. Too much. It could have been introduced in a later Kaldheim set.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I definitely think you should have saved certain things for the return to Kaldheim and not try to shove too much into one single set.
One good thing, though, about this is we got some really unique flavor profiles for things. Like, Foretell is dominantly in Azurius.
Yeah, although they did spread it out because wasn't there like some black Foretell cards too?
There's black, there's green, there's a couple red ones. But
yeah.
Primarily it was in Azurius. It got most of the tribal support for it.
Yeah, agreed.
-1 black demon cleric, I believe it was.
Yeah, he's that demon that has Foretell. Or he lets you foretell anything, doesn't he?
I think it was a missed opportunity, though. They could have put that sort of effect on a mythic level sorcery. It would have been really cool to just have it like foretell your entire hand, and that would have been the whole effect there.
Yeah, like you pay like a crap load of mana and say you're about to get wheeled. Who would have liked to seen this on an instant? I feel like everything in Magic should have an answer to it. Like if you do a thing, I should be able to respond to it. So it's like, oh, you're going to wheel? All right, well, I'm going to foretell my entire hand in response. It literally goes down. I still have to pay for those cards. I pay for those cards at a later date on my turn and pay 2 less.
Where was this effect when Hull Breacher was still legal in Commander?
Duh, right? Like, that would have been the answer to Hull Breacher.
Yeah. So, from a good mechanic to a bad mechanic, I'm going to let Dave introduce it because he's the expert at boasting.
I am. Let's boast about how bad this mechanic is and how great our YouTube channel is.
Damn right. So as far as boast goes, the mechanic was pushed and didn't do anything. It just kind of sat there. There was, 2, maybe 3 good boast cards and not much else.
Yeah, the dragon that, when you boast, you get a dragon and your dragons are cheaper. Neato. The thing that kind of annoyed me about Kaldheim was there was like, we care about dragons. And it's like, there's not really that many dragons in the set. Like, you didn't really deliver on the dragon front. So, like, who cares?
Yeah, I mean, tribal and changelings, like, okay, it works great if you have changelings on the board. But now you're running a 3-color deck because all the changelings were in blue and green.
Yeah. I'm starting to see a pattern here. It recalls back to when Party didn't pay off in AFR. I kind of feel like maybe they okay, we're doing Dungeons and Dragons, so let's do some cool dragon stuff in Kaldheim, and then we'll pay it off in AFR because we're putting a bunch of dragons in the set. I don't like the idea of sets having their eyes forward to future sets, because that's not how we get it now, and then we get this other thing later, and I would rather the thing work now, and then the thing that comes later makes the thing that came before it work better.
Is it weird to you that Boast and Party are both very push mechanics, and yet both came across as very lackluster?
Yeah, we're talking about Maro's state of design here. I definitely want to avoid criticizing him or being, overly harsh to Mark. He brings a lot of energy to the game, a lot of positivity, and I think that's really cool. But I sometimes wonder if maybe Mark pushes things, and it's like, stop pushing this. It's not a good idea. And I wonder if maybe there's just a few too many yes men around him, or if people just don't have enough say on whether or not, hey, look, this is a bad idea. I kind of just feel like Mark needs to be told no on certain things.
Mark has a lot of seniority in the company, and I think people are afraid to say no to him sometimes, which, fine, whatever, I get it. I've worked for companies like that.
Yeah.
Someone has to, say, no, Companion was bad, don't do it.
Yeah, and Mark kind of gets that when he pushes the set and the set blows up in his face. There is kind of that negative feedback loop just from him designing the mechanic and then it failing miserably, like Companion. He definitely gets his own feedback, but I would prefer that it not happens in the first place. I would prefer that, look, this just doesn't work. As a creative person, sometimes when you're working on these big collaborative efforts, and you see this with directors who get too influential and shit, their earlier movies are fucking amazing, and then they get big and popular, and then they just start putting out shit because nobody tells them no at that point.
Yeah, I think we need to move on to snow permanence, because I feel like this might have been something that maybe Mark pushed for a little bit. I think it was a great include in the set, very thematic for, a Norse-inspired set.
Definitely.
One complaint.
No snow hate. We need snow hate.
One snow hate card. All it does is make the lands enter tapped. That's not enough snow hate, and it's a very minor thing.
Yeah, because land destruction is kind of a weird thing. It's do you just want to blow up all the snowlands? Hey, you're being punished for playing snowlands, or do you just want to make it unadvantageous to play snowlands? Hey, if you tap a snowland for mana, it's a frostbite type of card. You flavor it as frostbite. You're getting too cold. If you tap this snow permanent for mana, you take 1 damage.
Also, snow duels enter tapped anyways. So
yeah,
the one card you wanted to hinder.
They were already that way.
Yeah, there should have been way more thought into snow hate for the set. It was going to be a heavy mechanic here. I can think of 5 mechanics that would work better for snow hate. An enchantment that simply says snow permanents lose snow.
Yeah.
There you go. You can't capitalize on snow anymore.
Exactly.
If you have blood on the snow and you have that enchantment out, they no longer get the recursion aspect of it. It's simply now just a board wipe.
Yeah.
A heavy, overly costed board wipe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice to see snow come back.
Yeah, it is nice to see snow come back. This goes back to my point. Everything should have an answer. If you're capitalizing on snow and it's a heavy theme in a standard set or a premier set, then there needs to be a response to it, either in the same set or in the next set.
Hey, Dave.
Yeah?
Happy Storm Player noises. Bergie's a card that got introduced here.
Whee! Bergie. That woman looks great from the front and from the back.
Yeah, the artifact side of her gets me all horny.
See, Bergie comes down early on the front side and pays you off, and then later on in the game, she's extra horny.
The other thing, though, it's like Cheerios decks loves her, because it's like 0 mana nets me 1. Yeah, I'll take that. That sounds like a fair deal.
Oh, good
And
God, yeah.
who's one of the best Cheerio commanders out there right now?
Joyra.
Exactly.
Joyra just play all the 0 stuff, and hey, I'm getting paid. Hey, I'm getting paid to play my artifacts. You're getting paid?
Yeah. Paid to
Fantastic.
play my 0-cost artifact.
And then
Who says red and blue can't ramp?
we don't want to give red and blue ramp. You already have enough to do with all your ritual spells as it is.
But I want to ramp.
Yeah, well, that's what Goldspan Dragon is for. Another really great thing I liked in Kaldheim was they just absolutely blew out sagas.
Oh, yeah. Sagas were really good here, too.
2-color sagas, and they just made a crap ton of them. I'm really glad to see like all these different sagas. However, we need a saga commander or just a 5-color enchantment matters commander. I would love to frickin' build a saga deck. You know, it's funny that Chulane is the teller of tells and he's 3 colors. Like if they bring Chulane back, like bring him back as like another storyteller type of guy, but make him 5 colors and care about enchantments.
Dave, there is a really good 5-color enchantress commander, though.
Who?
Golos!
Ah! No, stop. Bad, Chris. Bad. Where's my newspaper?
I peed on it and threw it in the garbage.
Ew. There was a few other problems with Kaldheim other than the fact that it was a Ravnica block in one set. And that was the fact that they brought back like one-off mechanics.
In the Fang Bear. This kind of... I played a little bit of Standard on Arena there when this came out. And you couldn't play a game without coming across in the Fang Bear Infect decks.
Yeah. Infect is a very contentious mechanic. It is, I would say it's arguably the most controversial mechanic of Magic the Gathering. Here's the
so
thing.
Bad if Finn the Fang Bear didn't just guarantee 2 poison counters every time a Death Touch creature hit you.
I think their reasoning was, okay, it's only 2. So if I swing with a 10-10 with Death Touch, you're still only getting 2. Like, that's not the point. The problem
it's
is...
the fact that a lot of Death Touch creatures have 1 power, and it doubles the power they actually dealt to your opponent.
That, and the problem is, the overarching problem isn't the amount of Infect that they did. It's the fact that they did any. If you're going to bring Poison or Infect into the game, it should be mechanically relevant across the set, and more importantly, it should have an answer. There should be ways to deal with Infect.
I mean, clock spinning should be printed if you're dealing with Infect, except the problem here, clock spinning also adds poison counters. There's really no right answer to poison counters. You could have like some sort of anti-poison counter effect or anti-proliferate effect.
Basically, what we're saying in as few as words as possible, poison needs an antidote.
Agreed. And one day we might find that antidote. But for now, we should probably wrap this one up.
That's probably a good idea. Our discussion on this article ran long. So we are going to be breaking this up in 3 parts.
Stay tuned for part 2, where we discuss Strixhaven and Adventures in the Forgotten Realms.
And then in part 3, we go over the ancillary sets, Commander Legends and Modern Horizons 2.
I've been Chris Fold, Baker's King.
And I'm Dave, Guru S'mores. Thanks for spending some time with us.
And thanks for watching.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah, Dave, what's going on?
What creature goes around corners sideways?
I don't know what creature goes around corners sideways.
Mole Drifter!
Oh, yeah, okay.
Screech!